Hello there. My name is William Cunningham of My Hope in Marriage. You can visit us online at myhopeinmarriage.com. And My Hope in Marriage is dedicated to helping you forge ahead by providing resources, articles, videos, and so forth to help you forge ahead to establish a happy and fulfilling marriage. That's what we want to do. I've been married for almost 36 years now, and way at the beginning, I decided to start studying marriage, the relationships, so forth, things relating to marriage, so that I could do the same, build a happy and fulfilling marriage. Okay? And I want to share what I've learned with you. All right. Now, today we have a special video. All right. Let me explain. Back in 2021, I created a video called The Consequences, or titled The Consequences of The Consequences of Wives Rejecting Their Husbands. And that thing got over 26,000 views, up till now. Now, for me, that was great. that was really, really good, and it also came from an article that I wrote with the same name, The Consequences of Wives Rejecting Their Husband, and that has generated a lot of comments, and so has the video. And since then, since I created that video and that article, that initial article, I've learned a lot more from observing the comments of guys who've written in, commented on the video and the article and their experiences. And it's really amazing how many men are suffering in these really bad marriages with wives who seem to don't care, just totally clueless, or whatever the case may be, while they're suffering and we have to put on a smiley face like everything's okay, and we still have to hold up the court and so hold up the castle to hold everything up. All right. So men are really suffering. So I thought I'd come up with a follow-up to number one, inform wives. Look, don't reject your husband. Be attentive to these type of things, and you both need to communicate. That's very important. You should always be doing that, and you should be doing that anyway in your marriage. All right. And also for husbands, look, don't let it get you down, man. I know it's a lot to go against when you marry someone and you think you're going to have this beautiful life together, and you find that she's consistently rejecting you. All right, when I say wives rejecting, I'm not talking about, he approaches her one night and she says she has a headache. That's not rejection. She may really have a headache. She may really not be in the mood. There may be something on her mind. Hey, she's human. All right, but if it's consistent, then there's something else going on. If she's consistently rejecting you, eventually there are going to be effects. I called it consequences in the first one, but now there's some other things that will happen as a consequence of those consequences. All right, and I want to talk about them in this particular video. Okay. Now, the writing style in this, or the style that I'm going to use, which I also used in the article, is almost like first person in some cases, as if I were interviewing someone and writing down what they said. All right. So you're going to see that. So I'm not trying to tell you my life story or anything like that, but I'm going to be talking sometimes as like the first person, All right. So just be aware of that. And as always, I'm speaking from a man's perspective. There are women who are rejected by their husbands. And I had a few that commented on either the last video, The Consequences of Men or Wives Rejecting Their Husband. And there's another one that I wrote about husbands rejecting their wives. And there are women who are being sexually rejected by their husbands, and they don't like it either. Okay. All right. So let's get into this. One of the things that happen when a man is consistently rejected sexually, and when I say rejected, typically that's what it means, because that's his emotional connection with his wife, and things come from that. You still may be functional, you still may get along, but if you emotionally reject him, then he's going to start feeling unwanted. Guy's going to start feeling like, his wife doesn't care. His wife doesn't want him. You know, here's a statement I have. I'm going to read this. It says, "My dog is happier to see me when I get home than my wife. All right. No matter what he's doing, the dog, he will come to the door with his tail wagging as if he hasn't seen me in years. Whereas my wife will still be watching television or something else. I have a strong emotional bond with my dog than my wife." That's pretty. I know dogs are man's best friend, so to speak, but jeez. All right. And there are shorts on Instagram where wives. This was amazing. There are shorts that I saw on Instagram. I think it was Instagram. I'm pretty sure it was Instagram, where wives were greeting their husband when they would come from work. You know, they open a garage and they driving in a garage, and she would turn around and start twerking him. Twerking for him. And back in the day, it was like, I wish my wife would greet me with lingerie at the door, something like that. But that was interesting that she was like, I'm not going to say like the dog, but she was demonstrating her happiness, if you will, to greet her husband when he came from work. Now, how do you think that guy felt? He felt wanted. He felt important. He felt significant to his woman. That she's waiting for him to come home and she decided to do this for him. And that's a great thing. That's a happy place for a guy. But typically, we don't get that. Guys don't get that. Guys get the cold shoulder a lot of times. And it's over a period of time, it starts to hurt. It starts to make you feel bad. All right. Now, he wants to be wanted, and that shows itself into her accepting him, wanting him, not rejecting him for sure, sexually or whatnot, or intimacy. She'd rather talk to him than watch television. She'd rather talk to him or be with him or just spend quality time with him than scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. All right. So eventually he'll begin to feel unwanted, and that will bring on other issues as he begins to operate in the mode that my wife doesn't care about me. All right. And who knows, he might start reciprocating. Okay. All right. Another thing that happens, and guys will tell you this, guys, I'm sure the guys can relate to this. When children come, the husband becomes a second-class citizen because her affections, her efforts are going to be focused on the children, not him. And in his mind, as this perpetuates with more children or continues with the same, if it was just one or two or whatever, then he's going to start thinking that she didn't get married for him. She didn't want to be with me. She just needed me to have a moral environment to have children. That's why I came. That's why I'm here. He'll start feeling that way. So for example, he might come to the family. He might go to a room, the living room or the family room or even the bedroom, and the kids are laying down with his wife, cuddling, and he's like, of course, one time, two time, but if that's consistent, and that reminds me of a scene in the movie, what was the name of that movie? Fatal Attraction, when the guy was getting ready. No, I think they were getting ready to go off somewhere. But anyway, they were going to be separated for a while. The kids and the wife were going to go someplace, and he was going to be home for business or whatever. And he came upstairs to go to bed, and he was ready for his wife, and she's in the bed with the kids, smiling at him. Right now, if that hadn't happened, maybe there wouldn't have been a fatal attraction. I remember thinking that when I first watched that movie, and I think it was way back in the '80s. I think. Okay, but anyway, he feels that the affections go for the children. You know, he becomes his wife's supporters when he becomes his wife's supporter when children come instead of the other way around. In the Bible, the woman was made to be the man's companion and helper, where he finds that now he's her helper because all of her affections is for the kids, and he has to help her be the mother, help her in raising the kids and so forth and so on. All right. And that's unfortunate, but this is what guys have to go through. A lot of guys have to go through. All right. And here's a statement. He says, "I love my kids, but I see them partly as a burden and the object of my wife's rejection of me. I work hard to keep from taking my frustrations with my wife out on them. They are innocent, but not really. They are evidence of the trick my wife played on me. I look at my firstborn and say to myself, that's why my wife left me." Can you imagine a guy thinking this is what's going on in a guy's head? And it's unfortunate. The kids are innocent, but he looks at the kids as the object. If it wasn't for him or the kids, maybe I would have my wife. Maybe after the first one, she's a new mother and she went off, but this happens the second and third, maybe the fourth time. If it weren't for them, maybe I would still have my wife. Instead, I married my children's mother. Okay. And they find that she can find all the time in the world and all the energies to do for the kids, but not for him. He's not important enough for her to pursue the relationship, to pursue meeting his needs as he tries to meet hers. Guys are already wired to do that anyway. We're wired to protect. We're wired to do for our wives, but we want the other way around too. All right. And men see the kids as an object representing the separation from their wives. Okay. Now, another thing that happens when a guy is consistently rejected by his wife, and as we said in the previous article, you might want to check that out, the consequences of wives rejecting their husband. He starts resenting her. He becomes distant and so forth and so on, is that he's at war with sexual imaginations and temptations. Now all of a sudden, he looks at Susie on the job, who's not necessarily dressing promiscuously. She just has on a nice dress that's showing her figure. And a guy, I know women, I don't think realize that a woman could be dressed in a blanket and he will see the body, or he'll wonder what's under there. You know what I mean? All right. He'll see a bulge here or there. So now he has to fight that. Whereas before, he's thinking, oh, no problem. I'll just go home. I got that at home. But he can't say that. Because at home, he may have the body of the person, but he doesn't have access. So essentially, he doesn't have it. So now he's fighting all the time these temptations that keeps bombarding him. Because in our society today, everything's sexual. You can't watch a commercial without being bombarded with sexual, promiscuity, with sex in some way or some form. So now he's at war in his imaginations, and that's going to affect his work. It's going to affect his thinking. It's going to affect all aspects of his life, because he has to spend a whole lot of energy increasingly to fight those imaginations. Oh, I can't stop thinking. I can't think that. And those temptations. Oh, no, nope. I can't. He has to find ways to divert that stuff because they keep creeping up. All right. He thought that marrying this woman would give him access to that and he would be satisfied. But now she's the cause of an increase in not only dissatisfaction, but stress. That's another in the first article, the consequences of wives rejecting their husband. We talked about he gets stressed out. That's the consequence. He gets stressed. Anxiety, depression. All right. So he's going to be fighting these sexual imaginations and fantasies, and he might find himself daydreaming about he's looking at Mrs. Jones over there, in a business meeting, and she has on this dress and she's sitting down, and he's not trying to do it; it just happens. Right? Because he has all that energy pent up in him that was supposed to be for his wife, but now it's not because she's not going to allow it. All right? Okay. Another thing that can happen is as the pain persists over years or whatever length of time the guy deems it, very, very intolerable or damaging, he may start to regret getting married. Why did I marry her? Man, if I'd known, if I could go back in time and do it all over, I wouldn't have done it. Nope, I wouldn't have done it. If I'd known that this is the outcome of marriage, I wouldn't have done it. I would have done something else. He regrets it because it hasn't produced what he thought it would produce. He thought he was going to get a companion. He thought he was going to get a romantic partner, if you will. He thought he was going to have a wife. But like I said previously, as one guy put it, I married my children's mother, not a woman to be my wife. I'm married to my children's mother, not my wife. All right? So he's going to regret being married. He's going to regret getting married. Cursed is that wedding day. If only the limo had a flat tire or something. All right? So he's going to, why did I get married? I mean, what I have now, she rejects me, but hey, the bills get paid, the children are cared for, but I don't need a wife for that. I just get a roommate. I get a friend with benefits. All right? So this is what goes on with guys. They end up regretting that wedding day. And another thing, of course, as you might expect, he finds that he's out of love with her. He doesn't love her anymore. And when I say love, I'm talking about romantic love. There's a ebook I have on the website, myhopeandmarriage.com, that's called What Happens to Love and Marriage. Check that out, because I describe the two types of love. That's commitment love and romantic love. Commitment love is something you decide to do. Love is a decision. All right? You decide to love and treat with love. But romantic love is based on how you feel. It's emotional. So if the wife is causing you this pain over and over and over and over, and I always forget the author's name. Because I think of it, I don't remember the author's name, but there's a book called His Needs, Her Needs. I believe it's that book, but there's this concept of the love bank. All right, the concept of the love bank. All right, so what happens is he's getting hurt and hurt and hurt over and over and over by his wife because of rejection. Then that's like making withdrawals of the love bank, and then soon there's really nothing much there, And next thing you know, he doesn't feel any romantic love for her anymore. Well, why should he? You know, it goes without saying, if you hurt me emotionally all the time, then I'm not going to emotionally love you. Okay? All right. So eventually the guy's going to fall out of love. Now, I don't think I have to tell you how dangerous a situation that is, that he falls out of love, because he may, remember we talked about the imaginations and so forth, or he'll seek that emotional connection elsewhere. Well, he may look for love or find himself in a situation where he's falling emotionally for another woman. Now, again, that goes into the fighting the imaginations and so forth. So now he's spending all kinds of energy because these feelings for her are starting to build, because he's not getting them from his wife. All right. So there's like a lose-lose situation for the guy. Right? Because if he falls for her, and let's say there's infidelity involved, now he's a bad guy. When the first sin was her rejecting him. I might do an article on that. I think I might have done that already. But anyway. Okay. I didn't talk about is the emotional connection he has the emotional connection that he wants with his wife, or that's supposed to be with his wife, he looks for elsewhere. All right. He falls out of love, but now his mind is trying to go elsewhere for that emotional connection with a woman. All right. Now, binding with another woman brings on its own set of problems if adultery, infidelity, unfaithfulness manifests itself, because now you got a whole different, now you become the bad guy. When all of that could have been avoided if the wife had not rejected her husband. It's something that I hear women say on these like podcasts and shorts and videos online. It's really, let me just say that there are enlightened women out there. I'm not saying that all women are bad. No. There are enlightened women who understand this. And one of them said, I'll never forget this. Actually, several of them said, always make sure my man leaves the house empty. All right. In other words, he's fulfilled. He's gotten all that pressure out. And she did it. And now he has this association with her doing that for him. That's a wonderful thing. Okay? So if his wife continues to reject him, then he may end up looking for an emotional connection with someone else. All right? And that's not a good place to be. All right? Now, another thing that can happen, which, is just step by step, this progression, is that he begins to be apathetic towards his wife, especially if there's another woman. Now, that other woman may not be a love interest, but it just may be someone on his job in a place where his wife is not. That's just showing not necessarily interest, but shows appreciation, respect, so forth and so on. That he's starting to, gravitate in that direction like any human being would. And now he has to fight all these imaginations, because in the same time she is being helpful in whatever it is he's doing, but at the same time he's getting emotionally attached. And all of that could have been avoided if his wife had done what the Bible said. Don't deprive one another of what's due. Was that 1 Corinthians 7 or 2 Corinthians 7? Don't deprive one another of what's due, except for a small amount of time for prayer and fasting, but come together quickly. All right? Come together quickly, lest you be tempted because of your lack of self-control. I didn't think I needed self-control. The Bible says, it's better to marry than to burn with passion. I have an article on that. It's better to marry than to burn with passion. All right, because of your lack of self-control. Well, all right, I don't have self-control. I didn't never try to have self-control, so I'm gonna get married. But who would have thought that I would have to practice self-control being married? It just is something not right about that. Okay, all right. So another thing, like I said, can happen is that he feels apathy towards his wife. He doesn't care about her much anymore. He doesn't have any feelings. It's no, you know what I mean? He's just become insensitive. And that can manifest in all kinds of different ways. He starts ignoring her, or he doesn't help her as much as perhaps he used to, or so forth and so on. So he becomes apathetic because she's a source of pain, consistent pain. And not only pain directly, but indirectly, because of you, I have to fight to stop thinking about somebody else when I shouldn't even have to be entertaining that. It's bad enough that out there in our society, you have sexual innuendos all over the place. But now you don't give me a defense. I know I'm going to have to come home and do a cold shower. Well, you probably don't want to do that, because to come home and go right and take a shower may give a clue that you have an affair or you've had an affair and you're trying to wash it off. But anyway, I'm not going there. So he may get apathetic towards his wife. All right. For example, someone gave an example, an illustration, a vision where his wife was in an accident, a serious accident, hit by a truck. And she had to go to the hospital. He didn't feel anything. Like, oh, my baby, no, it's just to him. It was just he was responsible. So I got to go to the hospital, see how she's doing, do what I can for her, because I'm responsible, not because I feel a certain way, not because the love of my life was hurt or possibly, hurt or almost died or whatever. And then he said he thought, what if it were me in the truck? What if it were me in the car that got hit by that truck? I wouldn't. What would I think? I'd be in a better place. My pain would be over. Whereas when it's her, it's like, what if she had died? Do we have life insurance? That's what he said, and that's critical. Talk about apathy. There's no emotional connection anymore. You may think that's cold, but yeah, there's no emotion. There's nothing left except function and duty. Okay? A man connects emotionally with his wife through sex. If that is taken away, the emotional connection dies. And now he's not going to feel anything. Okay. Another thing that happens, which was surprising to me, and guys have said this several, is that they hate their life. Can you imagine? You hate your life. Now you may say, well, that's stupid. Why would you hate your life just because your wife rejects you sexually? That's not it. That's not it. All right? Guys know that. Women will say, well, that's stupid, because just because he's not getting sex, he's going to hate his life. It ain't that. All right? That's not the issue. The issue is he had an emotional connection. He invested in this relationship. He invested in his marriage. He probably paid for the wedding. He's paying for the house. He's doing all of this for this woman. On Valentine's Day, he gets her chocolates and flowers and diamonds and rings. And Mother's Day, he does it all. And what does he get? Nothing. Year after year after year after year. And after a while, not even birthday sex anymore. Not even wedding anniversary sex. All right. And year after year after year after year, as one guy said, it was like, I don't remember if he was 50 years old. He was married for 50 years. I forget. But what happens is you just start looking at your life and you're like, what did I do? I hate this life. It's not that you hate your life per se, living like you want to commit suicide. I'm not talking about that. You just hate the circumstances that you're in. There's no light. There's no tunnel. You're thinking optimistically there's soon going to be light at the end of the tunnel, but then you start to realize you're in a cave. There's no way out unless you bust out or turn around, get out of the cave and go another way. So you hate your life. You hate where you are. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Not that you want to commit suicide, even though one of the consequences of being rejected by your wife consistently, as I expressed in the previous article and video of that name, is that you can suffer depression. All right, and that could lead to thoughts of suicide and so forth and so on. All right, so that apathy for his wife, that hate for his life can come as a result of all the feelings and emotions and the things that he has to deal with, all because his wife consistently rejects him. That's a shame. That's very, very shame. Another thing that a guy will do is he's going to start protecting himself from further hurt. I mean, if you're walking down the street and all of a sudden somebody comes and starts, you're going to start, protecting yourself. You're going to start doing something to protect yourself. You're not going to keep letting this guy beat on you. So eventually he's going to say, well, look, he's going to come to the conclusion, she doesn't care. She doesn't care about me. She doesn't want me. She doesn't care about the relationship. She doesn't invest in a relationship. I'm going to protect myself. I'm not hurting anymore. or I'm not going to let her hurt me. And he's going to start doing stuff to protect himself. And that stuff may not be to her best interest. Some guys may get violent. All right? Emotionally abusive, maybe even physically abusive. All right? But he's going to put up a wall. You're not hurting me no more. Maybe he'll go get another woman. I don't care anymore. Okay, so he's going to start protecting himself from further hurt from a woman who he thought he would have a happy life with. He thought would be his wife, but now is just his children's mother. Okay, and of course, you notice the progression here. It just keeps getting worse. It just keeps degrading. All right. And unfortunately, the guy's life is, in his mind, being degraded as well. Things are getting worse and worse. Of course, divorce can happen. He may get to the point, as a woman may, he may get to a point where he's like, I've had enough. I'm 50 years old. I'm 40 years old. Or some guys, look, I'm 25 years old. I've had enough. It's been 2 years. All right, but anyway, I've had enough. Whatever that point is for the guy, he'll get to the point where he says, I've had enough. And to him, divorce is not out of the picture. It's not out. It's not. It's an option. Okay, so he pursues divorce. Now, unfortunately for him, that's a big risk because he could lose a lot of stuff getting divorced. The law is purportedly not biased towards one sex or the other. But the experiences and perception of guys is that it is. And the perception of women is that it's fair. But guys will tell you could lose everything. So divorce is a tricky topic. And that can lead to other nefarious options, which I don't want to get into. All right, but he comes to a point where he says, enough is enough. I've been hurt too much. I'm not going to let this woman hurt me anymore. All right? And of course, ultimately, this destroys the family. For her not to consider her husband's needs destroys the family because it just puts a rift between them, a chasm between them, and you have a dysfunctional family. And that affects the children. Now, they have a bad view of what a husband and wife is, all right? And they're going to perpetuate that unless they seek out to learn what it should be. All right? So it hurts the family when you have, and it all starts when she doesn't meet his needs. And it's the other way around too. I just want to put that out. When he doesn't meet her needs, she becomes the unhappy one. She becomes enough is enough, and so forth and so on. But we're talking about the guy's perspective now. It all started with her rejecting her husband, which shouldn't be. What'd you get married for? All right, what'd you get married for? Oh, I got married because I got pregnant. There's no reason to get married. I remember my father told me that. Getting a woman pregnant is not a reason to get married. He said also being in love with her is not a reason to get married. I understood that one later. Romantic love he was talking about. All right? Okay. Where are we? So we talked about destruction of the family. All right, now, I don't want to leave the guys just, hey, that's what happens. What are some options guys have? When we find ourselves in a marriage that we come to hate, we're apathetic towards our wives, we don't believe she wants us, and so forth and so on, as we discuss, what are your options? Number one, I tell you all the time, let me just go down my list. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Maintain your self-worth. Because you might be thinking, am I not good enough? I don't cut the mustard for her. I mean, what's wrong with me? Don't even go there. There's nothing wrong with you. Well, maybe there is something wrong with you. Maybe something wrong with all of us. We can all improve in some area. But don't let her rejection of you cause you to doubt your own self-worth. Don't do it. All right? Okay, she doesn't appreciate the worth that I have. That's her problem. Seriously. All right? So maintain your self-worth. Don't allow her rejection of you to cause you to think a little less of yourself. All right? Look at yourself. What can you do, man? What do you know how to do? What are you good at? You have value. All right? Pursue your dreams. I always tell people this. Pursue your dreams. Just because you have a bad marriage or whatever, don't allow that to interfere with you accomplishing the things you want to accomplish. Of you obtaining the things you want to attain. Go for it. Don't allow that to stop you. Okay, well, if you're not with me, so what? I'm going to go. Now, here's the problem. I know some of you guys are thinking this. Well, she's just going along for the ride. I pursue my dreams. I get rich and famous, become a CEO. Then all of a sudden she wants a divorce and I got to give her half. That's something you got to deal with that. All right. But don't allow her to keep you from pursuing your dreams. All right. Spend time with your family and friends. Hey, you don't want to spend time with her. She don't want to spend time with you. Spend time with something. Fellowship is a good thing. I'll just leave it at that. Fellowship is a real good thing. And of course, you are responsible for your own happiness. Don't put that on her. Whether you have a great marriage or not, it is not your spouse's responsibility to make you happy. It's a great thing when your spouse contributes to your happiness because now you got a good feeling when you think of her or him. All right, but pursue your own happiness. Ensure your own happiness with or without her or your spouse, him. Okay? Also, get help. Maybe you just want to talk to somebody. Maybe a counselor or a pastor, or just get help if you think you need it. I would say marriage counseling, but, there's a lot of negative connotations with marriage counseling, but anyway, get help. Like I said, your family and friends, maybe talk to somebody. Maybe you have a pastor or whatever. But just get help if you think you need it. All right? There are lots of like online resources for men, online groups for men. Check those out. Get part of a group, a meetup or whatever, where guys can talk. Okay. Of course, always communicate with your wife. Never not communicate with your wife. Tell her what you're thinking, what you're going through, what you're feeling about the relationship, and so forth and so on. Maybe she's just totally clueless, which happens a lot. or maybe she just doesn't realize it. All right. But if you discuss it, perhaps you can fix things. All right. But at least do that. Don't make decisions about your relationship if you haven't at least talked to her or tried to. A lot of guys said that they've tried that and it don't work. But at least they can say, look, my conscience is clear. I talked to her. I tried. Don't be condescending. Don't be disrespectful. Just tell her how you feel about the relationship, what you're thinking, what's going on. Okay? I'm going to hurry and wrap this up. This is getting kind of long. And of course, pray for guidance. Always pray for guidance. Through wisdom, God will help you out. All right? Okay, well, that's it. Those are the effects that on men when wives reject their husband consistently. All right, we've gone over some, and this is a follow-up video from the consequences of wives rejecting their husbands. You might want to check that out as well. All right. But this is just some of the effects. And all these things that we talked about can lead to other things because each guy is going to manifest apathy differently. He's going to manifest controlling his imaginations and so forth differently. Or he may say, I'm not controlling anything. If she don't want to do what I'm doing. All right. All right. So I pray this has been helpful to you. Sorry, it took a little while, but this is a very serious issue and there's just a lot to discuss. I pray that you do well. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to send your questions, in the comments. Feel free to comment. I'd be more than appreciative of it. Well, until the next time, be blessed.